Hey everybody, this is Damien with Surrogate Alternatives, and on today's Surrogate Buzz, we are speaking with a special guest right after this. Hey everyone, look who we have here today. Dr. Smotrich. Hi,
Thank
Dr.
you, Damien.
Smotrich. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. So excited to have you on. I know you're extremely busy, but we are happy to have you on for the first time on our Surrogate Buzz show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been very fortunate to be in our community for 25 years and worked with SAI for close to 22 of those years very closely, and I think we've done close to about 2,000 cases together. So it's my honor and pleasure to be on with you right now.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I do look at those old photos of you and Diana way back when.
You mean when I was young and thin? Yes.
It's so funny going back to the days and looking at those photos. So everyone's already getting on saying hi to you.
Thank you.
Considering what's been going on in the world right now, how have you been personally?
So I appreciate that question. Fortunately, we've been very, very well. As you know, I'm married and almost married for 31 years. I'm blessed with 3 children. My eldest is actually pregnant right now. She's 27 years old.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
And, we're expecting our first grandchild in July, so that's very exciting. A bit unnerving because she normally lives in New York City, but she moved in with her husband and her husband's family in New Jersey, and everybody's been kind of on lockdown. And my son is in business school. He's in Israel right now, and he's been on lockdown also. And my youngest daughter's gotten the brunt. She's 22, and she's a senior at UCLA. And when they canceled UCLA, she got stuck home with mommy and daddy, who thinks that she's still 6 years old as opposed to 22 years old. So my immediate family, thank God, is healthy. And one of the things that I've been doing for friends of ours and the police departments actually is I've been delivering surgical masks. And when people come to the office, not just for procedures, they're going to be seeing some changes that we have implemented to follow some of the recommendations and guidelines of not only our local government, but the federal government as well.
Right. And I do know that, and it's impacted this industry
tremendously.
Yeah, tremendously. I've never seen, obviously, anything like it before. It's something that none of us could have ever predicted in that sense, that it would impact this much. We were tracking it ourselves here at Surrogate Alternatives sometime in January, but especially because we knew it would impact some of our intended parents from international parents. So it was something that we thought would just kind of go away, but it didn't.
Right. And so this is a couple of important things, and I'll take the time with your permission to go over
absolutely.
A few very important things. So I'm not going to get political because I don't think that is appropriate, nor is an area that I find any enjoyment in whatsoever.
Right.
This is a very serious and unfortunately contagious and dangerous virus. And so right now, as you know me very well, and Diana knows me very well, about 85% of our patients are international patients, and I've been fortunate to take care of the patients, many of them together with SAI, who have had babies in 100 different countries worldwide. When the infection became significant enough to close our borders, and that is the first time in my lifetime, I'm 57, and in my father's lifetime, who's 82, because I asked him about it, they never had closed the borders before for a risk of infection.
Wow.
So this is an unprecedented time. That's number one. Number two, we're fortunate in that we have these different types of technologies that we can actually see people and communicate this way. And so one of the first American Society for Reproductive Medicine guideline, or ASRM guideline, came out shortly after the European borders were closed. So if my time frame is correct, I believe it was March the 17th, the president had announced that he was closing the European borders. He had closed the Chinese borders, which impacted both of our practices quite a bit. February 2nd, I believe it was Super Bowl weekend, and they closed pretty much all the borders to international patients around the middle of March. The American Society for Reproductive Medicine came out, and at that time again, about 6 weeks ago, the governor was closing our state in terms of stay-at-home orders. They were closing all the schools. And we really didn't get a handle on things, and I think everybody's reaction initially was tremendous concern that the hospitals would be overwhelmed with patients needing the intensive care unit as well as being intubated on a breathing machine.
Right.
And so ASRM said, finish the cases that you have going now, stop everything else. And many centers canceled a lot of cases. We offered to patients to continue. We finished with all our patients. And we wound up postponing quite a few frozen embryo transfers, which were a little more predictable. The ASRM then came out with guidelines saying, okay, you can take care of patients when there are certain risks and things like a woman with a low ovarian reserve, a woman who's over 40. Initially, we really didn't have much data at all with regards to the risks of a woman getting coronavirus while pregnant or pursuing pregnancy. So far, the initial kinds of things are coming out that it looks that it doesn't pass over through the placenta to the baby, which is good news. There have been a lot of studies out of China and a lot of studies out of New York City looking at hundreds of women who had tested positive for coronavirus in the third trimester and while in labor. And thank God it doesn't cross the placenta. It does not affect the baby. It does not infect the baby in a vertical transmission.
Right.
So this is very important because obviously there's a tremendous concern about whether or not it negatively impacts a pregnant woman. I don't believe in closing. I feel that my role here is to be available for all the patients that need our help. And while I abided by the American Society for Reproductive Medicine guidelines, they are opening up the guidelines and loosening them up to offer care. Just about our practice, we are on the campus of Scripps Memorial Hospital. Scripps is one of about 5 or 6 different hospitals in San Diego that publishes kind of a daily report to the physicians involved. They've done over 7,500 tests of patients that are symptomatic, coughing and elevated temperature, all these things.
Wow.
Less than 8% of those symptomatic patients have tested positive. And again, in San Diego as a whole, we are, I believe, the 7th or 8th largest population state in the United States. And as of this week, and I don't know exactly what the number is today, but our numbers are fortunately below 3,000 or maybe 3,500 max. And we have, I think, 110 or 112 patients that have passed away. So as a city with a population that, depending on how you count, we've been very fortunate. The state of California, which could be its own country, if you will, which has close to 40 million people, we've had, I believe, in the neighborhood of a maximum of about 50,000 cases. Mm-hmm. And I believe that as a state, we've had less than 3,500 deaths. So as a state, we've done very, very well. The East Coast has been overburdened, and I have a lot of colleagues that are working in the ICUs there, and you know, the things that they saw and the things that we saw on TV with Spain and Italy, where patients that were too old or older than 65 were not even allowed in because they ran out of supplies and they ran out of incubators. And so it was very, very detrimental.
Right.
Coming back to our little office, in order to get into the building itself, every single individual, doctors, nurses, delivery people, patients, are tested for temperature. We all have masks on in the office. We are constantly cleaning the office, doorknobs, bathrooms, all the different settings. Our waiting room, we are doing one patient at a time, so we are preventing a lot of people from being together. And in busier times, it would be quite usual to have quite a few people in the rooms in terms of the waiting room. And then obviously when we do things together with our surrogates, it's a very exciting time for not only pregnancy ultrasound, but embryo transfer. And we're used to having, I like to call it an entourage, if you will.
Right.
And many times SAI has their staff members who come in for the embryo transfer.
Our support team.
And so as a support team, exactly right. And so unfortunately right now, we're only allowing one person in the room for embryo transfer. And unless there is a communication issue where the woman cannot speak English easily, so she needs a translator, then we'll allow the translator in. But for the most part, we're trying to keep everybody separate and distanced until obviously they have a vaccination or they have proof of an actual medical treatment to help with this particular virus.
Right. Thank you. That's a great recap, especially of what's going on, and we're happy that you're still operational. I know we have a question here from Vivian. She says, how are you and your staff doing during this stressful period?
Well, I appreciate that. And, people who know me know that while I'm not a great athlete, I'm an exercise enthusiast. So I've been running every day to try and clear my head. And hopefully they'll have the New York City Marathon this year. And if so, that'll be my 17th year doing the New York City Marathon. That's how I do with my personal stress. Everybody in our staff has been tested. We've been found to all be negative.
Wow.
We've been antibody tested. We're all negative for antibodies. We are currently testing every single patient who has a procedure. So if a woman's going to have an egg retrieval, within about 5 to 7 days of the anticipated egg retrieval, we're testing for coronavirus. And every woman who's going to have an embryo transfer, we are also testing for coronavirus. So we're doing everything we possibly can to be safe for not only myself and my staff, but for our patients as well. And unfortunately, it's different times, but
right.
We're very fortunate. We have a modest size practice. I don't like turnover. The average number of years that women have been working with me, and my whole staff are indeed women, the women have been working with me, the average length of time is between 11 and 12 years. Mm-hmm. And with tight times and difficult times, we band together to do the best we can. And
absolutely.
We've made changes in, our usual schedules and things like that, but I'm very hopeful that things will open up. This week alone, I've had telephonic or Skype type consults with patients from virtually all over the world, all over Asia, South America, all over Europe and Australia. So people in these different places all want to come. So thank God we have patients that are still interested in doing what we want to do and want to help them. My best guess is just like everybody else's best guess. China seems to have a much less occurrence right now. Right. And so they, in the lockdown area, were actually locked down for 76 total days. If we count the days that we were asked to lock down by our governor, I think we're close to about 50 days. Mm-hmm. The people that I spoke to in London yesterday and Norway yesterday, the Norwegians can travel to other Scandinavian countries, but if they go somewhere else, they have to quarantine for 14 days.
Right.
And the Middle East, Israel, still has their airports closed. The British fellow thought that they'd be able to be traveling from the UK here, hopefully by the end of June, possibly July. So, we've been talking to every single individual surrogate. We've been talking to every individual intended parent. I believe right now that patients who want to get pregnant have the right to get pregnant. It'd be my honor and pleasure to help them get pregnant.
Right.
It's not like the government, the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, the American College of OBGYN said, okay, this is really dangerous in pregnancy. Everybody at home, stop having sex. We don't want any babies now.
Right.
I'm saying that a little sarcastically. I'm saying that a little comedically, even though I'm not that funny anymore. But the truth of the matter is, if God forbid something like that happened, then for sure we wouldn't be doing any embryo transfers.
Right.
Because the early data shows that it does not affect the reproductive organs of the woman. It has not been found in the uterine tissue, has not been found in the endometrium, has not been found in amniotic fluid, has not been found in the baby, has not been found in the ovary, has not been found in the sperm, has not been found in the testes. So for the most part, even though this is a very dangerous virus, at the moment, thank God, current information, and obviously it's a changing thing, or a changing environment, it looks like the reproductive areas should be open and should be clear. And so we are doing more and more cases, and I am welcoming more and more patients. I've never stopped. And again, we are a new normal, if you will, with masks and gloves and constantly washing of the hands. Although, as a person, I always wash my hand in front of my patient before I examine them, and I always wash my hands after I examine them. And most people appreciate that. So I know that's kind of a quirky thing, but even though I'm wearing gloves or whatever, I feel it's important for the woman that I'm examining that they see that cleanliness is very important for us. And that's important for our entire office, and I think that that's an important safety feature. I am hopeful that things will be a little more open within the coming weeks, and I am hopeful that then after they open the borders that patients indeed will not be so concerned about traveling. Now, I have some friends and colleagues who are doing national traveling, and even when things were just starting to gear up. I have a buddy of mine who does business on the East Coast. He's like, it was the best time to travel. You get on an airplane, there are 4 people on the airplane.
Right.
The airplanes can't survive with 4 people on an airplane. And so they, rapidly cut flights and all that. But, I think that they're going to be requiring masks and gloves for passengers who travel. And I think that everybody should be thoughtful and follow these guidelines. Wash your hands frequently. If you feel ill, don't go out. Right. If you have a temperature that's elevated, don't go out. Call your doctor. And there's a whole time frame where there's an asymptomatic part of this. But once you get symptomatic, it's not something that you should ignore. It's something that you should take advantage of in terms of seeking care.
Absolutely. One question we have here is, what do you need from us, patients, support team, agencies, to make your tough job a lot easier?
Well, again, we've been very fortunate to have very good relationship, not only with SAI, but with a lot of the different agencies in the community, and we work very hard to keep that. Communication is the most important thing. And we're happy I'm happy to evaluate any patient who wants to be seen. And we do it in a safe environment. Generally for our international patients, even before there was this pandemic, frequently we would start with either a phone, Skype, WeChat, depending on what technology source you wanted, conversation to go over what's involved with the process of in vitro and the process of surrogacy, if necessary, egg donation, what's involved, what are our expectations, how we go about doing it, what are the rules and regulations in the United States and with regards to the FDA. For surrogates, before we evaluate them, as you know, we call for all their old records to make sure that they are indeed good candidates. So no issues getting pregnant, no issues like elevated blood pressure, diabetes, thyroid disease, kidney disease, issues with premature delivery, premature contractions, any of those kinds of things. Right. And we very focused on body mass indexes as well. So I love to partner with my surrogates. What they do is an incredibly generous thing to allow them to help a family become a grown family or help babies come into the world. And I try very hard to partner with them to do everything we possibly can to make it easy for them. But we really have to follow some very strict medical guidelines because those guidelines help us with, thank God, very high pregnancy rates.
Right. Nicole says Dr. S is the best. We love him.
Thank you.
Rebecca says, "Hi, Dr. Smotrich. Hope you and your team are doing good. Appreciate everything you are doing for us."
Thank you.
Venice says, "They are all amazing." Speaking of your staff.
Thank you.
Let us see. Venice was talking about because she attends obviously the transfers and other procedures. She says, "I have a rainbow collection of clearance stickers from their building."
So she knows that we take this very seriously, and the sticker she's talking about is they put a little red sticker on a garment of yours once they've taken your temperature to show that indeed your temperature was taken and that you're safe to come and enter into the building.
Yeah, I find it comforting when I've been to the hospital a couple times for personal issues, but I find it comforting seeing these measures implemented. It makes me feel a lot better when I walk in there and everything's handled appropriately.
Right. So initially, I think the best analogy I have is going to the airport. Okay. And so when you go to the airport, you go through security. They're not going through security because most of the people who are in line in security are safe and are non-terrorists, and they're not trying to smuggle wildlife or whatever, drugs or whatever. But it's set up to protect you from people that are trying to do that. And so the overwhelming majority of people who are walking into this building are not going to have symptoms and are not going to have COVID-19. But
right.
We have to be, as thoughtful as possible to protect ourselves. Now, the other concerning thing that has been something that I've been thinking about, and I'm sure that you guys will be facing also, is intended parents can't get into the country to pick up their children. And so this is, obviously a big concern. And I know several of the lovely surrogates have volunteered to help raise the child initially. I'm sure the lawyers are having a field day with that.
Oh, but, yes.
The bottom line is that, I had a very distressed intended father call me who already has a child. And, the due date of his next child was this past week. And he's like, well, I can't get there because the government has closed the barriers.
Yeah.
So it's a real problem that we need to partner with the agencies and with couples and with everybody to be as thoughtful as possible. Because again, these are historically unusual and unprecedented times.
Sure. Yeah. And as you brought it up, our surrogates are in kind of a situation where the intended parent can't come in, I should say, from their international location and be there for the birth. So yes, indeed, the attorneys are scrambling, trying to get POAs and get everything in order. We've experienced that. Luckily, we didn't experience it too harshly in the beginning because we were ahead of it and making sure that the attorneys are speaking with the intended parents, trying to get their POAs ahead of time. And now we're even working towards August, just in case. We don't know what's going to happen, but we want to make sure we're all right. So, yeah, it's been a tough situation that all of us have been in. I know the surrogates wanted some communication and to wonder to know what's going to happen, and it's been tough. The attorneys have had to scramble, and I do not. I don't know how they've done it, but they've done it, as well as our team going behind the scenes working with the attorneys. And so I commend this whole entire industry for kind of jumping up, and getting together and trying to fix this. Like I said, we never imagined it at all.
Right. And there's a couple other things I would mention, and that is we as a country in harsh times tend to band together and help each other. And, I'm much older than you are, and I'm certainly much older than your surrogates. But even if we go back to something that was pretty prominent in all of our lifetimes, 9/11, after that tremendous terrorist attack and tragedy, New York City band together, the eastern states band together.
Right.
We had firefighters and police, volunteer to go from here there to help out. We had quite a few doctors and nurses who left here to work in New York City to help out. It's so hard to quantify because every single individual, frankly, in the world is impacted on this.
Absolutely.
from young children who can't go to school like they normally go, to elderly people. And unfortunately, my parents are older, and I can't go and visit them.
Mm-hmm.
And the cycle of lives have been postponed. I mean, people who want to do weddings or quinceañeras or bar mitzvahs, all of these things really, you can have the ceremony, but half the fun of the ceremony is the celebration that comes after.
Right.
So all of these things have been postponed, and I don't have a good reason why, but I think what's really important is to enjoy the time that you have with your loved ones, do everything you can to stay safe, and reach out to people. I'm calling people that are, I'll tell you a quick story. I mean, we were blessed to have 3 kids that were very eager to do well in school. So there are 2 older ladies who used to come as tutors for our kids from probably over a 10-year span. So these ladies now are in their late 70s, and I've stayed in touch all along. I mean, my kids went to college, or my youngest went to college 4 years ago, so she was the last to use them as tutors, probably maybe even 6 or 8 years ago. But I've stayed in touch to, they are not married ladies who live together, and I said, listen, you need any medical help, whatever, just stay in touch. Mm-hmm. So, I called them, and, they're not having anybody visit. They needed masks, they needed, disinfectants and all this. So I went and made a delivery, and they were so tearful and happy that I called and initiated that, and that, I followed through by bringing things to them. And, I mean, I can't color my hair. My wife actually gave me a haircut, so my hair, the Jufro has been cut down, so it's short, but she says I have salt and pepper. I would say I just have salt now, no pepper. But
right. I was going to ask you about the COVID haircut. Did you get one? And I'm still.
Yes, I got one. My wife did it, and I'll tell you, after being together for 31 years, married for 30, I can't believe we survived. That was one of the most traumatic experiences. No, she did great, but I mean, so now's the time really to reach out to people that are maybe extended friends or family that you don't have time to generally spend time with, but reach out to them, because there are a lot of people that are alone that need to know that they're not alone and that we're here to help them.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you one other thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
It feels terrific to go and do that.
It does.
And I know everybody at SAI gives back, and I know the surrogates give a lot back by not only their body and now taking care of a child that's, they've helped develop and bring in the world, but, that's even above and beyond that anything I could ever imagine. But now's really the time to try and do those kinds of things and enjoy those things. And I don't know if you've seen in the newspaper the waves now. While certain beaches are open at night, there's a beautiful bioluminescence. So I took my wife for a walk, and we watched that up in Encinitas last night. And we're doing things that are allowed, and then we're following the social distancing rules, and we're wearing masks whenever it's appropriate, and just doing the best we can. But back to our focus. It has been my honor and pleasure to work with you guys and SAI and Diana. I remember one of our first meetings together when she was probably in her mid-20s. That's how young she was. And I was probably 32 or 33. So, about a solid 22. Well, maybe I was 35, but a solid 22 years or 23 years ago. And, we've been very fortunate to work well together and have a lot of blessed patients and wonderful surrogates and donors to help them.
Absolutely.
And I don't anticipate that that's going to change, because patient care has always been my focus, and that will not change.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you so much for coming on to the Surrogate Buzz here at Surrogate Alternatives. We are always honored to work with you. We absolutely love you and your staff. So we have such a beautiful relationship with you and your team, and we thank you for everything that you do, not only for our surrogates, but for surrogacy and for IVF in general. We thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Give Diana a big hug for me, and to all the lovely surrogates who are watching you on Facebook, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the things that you do to help us make this a better place. All right. Thank you so
you.
much.
All right, guys, that's Dr. Smotrich. Thank you so much again, Dr. Smotrich, for coming on the Surrogate Buzz. Tune in next time, and we'll see you, I think, on Monday with another guest. Talk to you later,
Wonderful.
everybody. Have a good
Take
day.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.